each of those candidates, because we're delighted to have with us a guest, Roshini Rajkumar, and she's a communication consultant, media personality, interviewed on ESPN, CBS, Fox Business, Chicago Tribune, CNN, and we want to find out how these candidates performed in the debate. And we're going to talk about ranking the candidates in terms of their image, vocal behavior, believability, and winnability. And good to have her with us. Roshini, nice to have you here. How are you?
I'm great, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure to have you with us, and thank you for taking the time. You're based actually in Minneapolis, where our corporate headquarters are for the network, so there you go.
Yeah, I am, and it's, boy, what a night last night was with those two debates. And I am a political geek, so I was watching from the happy hour debate on as well as post-debate commentary. So I've got lots to share with you tonight.
Well, that's good. And let me ask the first question, which is about the perception is often reality. Did anybody in that first debate create a perception that they're a second-rate candidate, and therefore, by being there, they're acknowledging that?
You know, I don't think so. Here is a situation where these 17 candidates didn't really get to make the rules about who would be on stage. Fox News, because it was their debate, made the rules, decided, you know, from the last 5 polls, the top 10 candidates get to be in that primetime debate, the other 7 in the happy hour debate. If you really look at the numbers of those top 10, the last several had only about 2 to 3%, some of them even lower than that. So the bottom line is, even the last few of the 10 were very close to the 7 in the happy hour debate. So I think at this point, so far out ahead of the general election, it's pretty arbitrary, and any candidate needs that free airtime, so it was just smart for them to be involved with it.
Okay, let's go to the first one and go through each of the candidates. I'll take them arbitrarily in some order here. Carly Fiorina. We'll go through some of the areas of presentation, image, vocal tone, all of that. How did she present herself?
Well, she was the clear winner for me, and I know that that's what a lot of people have been saying after the debate, but every time she responded, she looked presidential. And that's what I'm looking at when I'm watching all of these candidates. Who really has presidential presence? And my little scale that I have come up with is what you've said: image, vocal behavior, believability, winnability. If you really looked at her, she was well put together. And now looks aren't everything, but we know in the age of TV, and indeed ever since the Kennedy-Nixon debate, that TV can win it for you. So the visual is very important. She was smart. She looked directly at us. There was no head tilting going on. She had great eye contact, and she was very reasonable with her vocal behavior. I never heard any defensiveness. I did not hear whininess, which I'll get into with some of the other people, all men. I'll get into some of those guys. But I never heard anything but an authoritative, very resonant voice. So when we're talking about vocal behavior, we are talking and wanting what's called a hard palate, deep, rich, resonant voice. So if you think of like a Darth Vader, James Earl Jones, or Lauren Bacall, these are some of those model, deep, resonant voices. And Carly Fiorina does have a strong voice for a female. It's resonant, and she was very well paced. There was no whininess, no defensiveness that I heard in the responses, and I was really paying attention to this. So that matched with how she looked was really helpful. Then we move on to believability. When she actually spoke, did you believe what she was saying? And I would say, even at the times that I didn't agree with her, I believed her. I believed in her conviction. I believed in the fact that she was criticizing whomever she was criticizing. And all of those then taken together point us to the final characteristic, which is winnability. And last night, she won that debate. And I would argue between the 2 debates and the 17 contenders, Carly Fiorina had the best overall showing.
I think I would agree with you completely. And I should disclose to you, I was a professor of communication for 6 years with a PhD in the field, and so
you know this stuff.
So my job was to study this as you do, and I agree with you. I think, and I think her being head of Hewlett-Packard had a lot to do with that. She no doubt gave many speeches and had to come across as presidential. And as you know, being a woman in the corporate world, you need a little extra push, a little extra.
You do. You need a backbone of steel. And the other thing that I found actually kind of funny, but she was meaning it very seriously, was when they were talking about Iran and the Middle East and negotiations. She was name-dropping, and she talked about knowing all those men over there in the Middle East, having actually had conversations with them. I don't know that many people on that stage could say the same thing with that same level of credibility.
No, not most of them. For purpose of time, because we have a lot to cover, I'm going to leave out George Pataki and Jim Gilmore, not because of discrediting them, but because their situation is much less likely than anybody else out there. That's just an arbitrary decision. But let's go to Rick Santorum. Always pretty articulate, but never seems to get over the hump of getting to the winner's position.
That's true. And he, for image and vocal behavior, I don't have an issue there. I think that the winnability, because part of it is the believability factor, winnability gets to be really tough because he hasn't really figured out how to package some of the things that some people in the general election are not going to be able to agree with him. And I will give him some props, though. Wasn't he the one who made the comment about his grandfather was an Italian immigrant when they were talking about immigration? I think that was Rick Santorum.
No, it was.
Or am I mixing that up?
Yeah, it was somebody else, but I remember the comment. I can't think of who it was.
And it wasn't Cuba. It was definitely.
I think it was John Kasich.
Thought, wow,
it might have been John Kasich.
I have to go back and look at the tape because I'm almost positive it was Santorum, and I think that's an Italian name because he was able to turn this immigration thing into, it was Italy. My family was from Italy, and he was separated. My grandfather was separated from his family for 9 years, and he did it the legal way. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting commentary to bring in when we're talking about immigration. But getting back to Santorum, just overall, the winnability, he's been here before. He should have had a stronger showing. I was actually really surprised that he wasn't in the primetime debate based on everything we've seen from him in the past.
We'll come right back and continue. We'll cover in the next segment Rick Perry, Bobby Jindal, Lindsey Graham, and if we have time, we'll try to get to George Pataki and Jim Gilmore, but those three for sure. So we'll come right back with our guest, and this is fascinating stuff as to how people come across. Not so much as what the content is, but how they as individuals present themselves, and she has a great background in that field. And so we'll come back with our guest, Roshini Rajkumar, communication consultant, media personality, and does this kind of analysis, and we're delighted to have her with us. We'll come back with much more on that. And again, as I said, the next segment will cover the remainder of the happy hour debate candidates, and then go from there. And Carly Fiorina did an outstanding job, and they may need to think twice about her. Maybe she'll be a good vice presidential candidate in the end. That could well happen. Stay with us. More coming.
The nation's largest independently owned and operated talk radio network. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
Was The Exorcist a fictional movie? This is Mike Siegel. Once you hear my interviews with Father Eugene Gallagher recorded in March of 1974, you will believe that possession and exorcism are powerful and real forces in the universe. Father Gallagher taught William Peter Blatty on the subject of exorcism, which led Blatty to write the book and result in the production of the film version of The Exorcist in 1973. Father Gallagher's interviews with me were so powerful that Warner Home Video decided to use 20 minutes of our 2.5-hour interview in the 40th anniversary release of The Exorcist last year. Now you can have the entire 2.5-hour interview on DVD. Order your copy of this unforgettable interview at www.mikesiegel.com. That's www.mikesiegel.com. Keep the lights on when you watch this compelling interview. www.mikesiegel.com. That's SIEGEL.
Thousands of people seeking home security get ripped off every day, and the home security industry wants you to believe that's your only option. They've got hordes of salesmen out there trying to scare you into signing one of their long-term contracts. You get stuck writing huge checks month after month with no way out. It's robbery by contract, and it can cost you thousands. But there's a better way to protect your home. Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe has no contracts. None. You'll get award-winning 24/7 protection. Security professionals watching over your home, ready to instantly send police to the rescue for just $14.99 per month. That's less than half what most companies charge. Protect your home the smart way. Visit simplysafedefense.com today for an exclusive 10% offer and get a free keychain remote worth $25. Only when you go to simplysafedefense.com. simplysafedefense.com.
Virtually anyone can hack your cell phone and track your calls, your texts, your emails, your every movement, but only if they can detect a signal. Stay one step ahead of hackers and Big Brother with a Block-It Pocket, a custom-made pocket infused with pure silver that creates a complete Faraday enclosure for your cell phone. For free shipping to the lower 48, visit blockitpocket.com or call 888-315-9618. blockitpocket.com, enhancing health and privacy.
Sciatica, lower back pain, hip pain, poor posture. If you suffer from any of these problems, get ready to relax. Introducing an amazing product that's been in the market for over 25 years, the Sacro Wedgie. It was invented by a football coach using a common-sense osteopath technique. He created this device to help his athletes by isolating and supporting the sacrum, which is the keystone of our anatomy. This wedge-shaped bone is in the center of our hips, where a lot of pain starts. Simply relax 20 minutes daily on the amazingly simple Sacro Wedgie and let gravity do the work, helping muscles rebalance and start releasing nerves. Sit in the Sacro Wedgie at the computer or while traveling to help correct posture to finally help relieve those stubborn aches and pains for only $33.95. It's made in the USA, so click the family-owned website at sacrowedgie.com, spelled SACROWEDGY.com, or call 1-800-737-9295. That's 1-800-737-9295. Relax your back pain away with the Sacro Wedgie.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS or state in back taxes, you know they'll never stop coming after you. With bank levies, wage garnishments, they'll even seize your home or business. The good news? A government program for tax debt forgiveness. It's called the Fresh Start Initiative.
I'm Paul Sibley with U.S. Tax Shield. We can help navigate the new laws, get you protected, and resolve your tax issues permanently.
Call the experts at U.S. Tax Shield now for your free consultation and get a guaranteed quote to resolve your case. Call 800-436-6451. That's 800-436-6451.
And welcome back in, folks. Good to have you with us as we move along. Mike Siegel here, as we are joined by Roshini Rajkumar, and she is a communication consultant, has done a great deal of analysis about those debates last night. So let's get back, Roshini, to the first debate and wrap it up with, let's start with Bobby Jindal, an interesting candidate, lots of background, governor of Louisiana, strong positions that he takes, calls out Islamic jihadism for what it is, and does not seem to get much traction in spite of all of that.
Mike, it seems that Bobby Jindal was really trying to break out last night. He had very strong, powerful words that he was using. He was not mincing any words. He was really making some jabs. And frankly, I would put him in third place. I actually ranked them, Fiorina, Perry, and Jindal for that first debate. If we're just talking about delivery, presidential presence, really holding their own. And Bobby Jindal was right in there. I mean, he may not have the winnability factor as strongly as some of the others among the 17, but last night when it came to image, vocal behavior, and believability in what he was actually saying, he scored some high points from me.
What's interesting is that a Republican African-American should do well. Dr. Ben Carson we'll get to later, but he obviously is, and Bobby Jindal is, but that doesn't seem to be a factor here in his campaign.
Well, the thing about being a Republican of color, you would think that would definitely help him, especially in Louisiana. But in the situation that, as I was listening to what he said, he's going to have a really hard time getting a lot of people to agree with him in the center as well as, the more liberal side of the Republican Party. And that, to me, is where his challenge does lie. So it will be interesting to see what he does in the debates that come up, because he's got the image, the vocal behavior, he's got some believability. I'm just not sure if he's got that likability piece, which isn't part of my scale, but it is really important when you're talking about winnability. People have to not only believe you, but they have to like you and really want to vote for you.
That's a powerful point, and it's one that may wind up playing out in the Donald Trump case we'll get to later as well. Let's go to, you mentioned Governor Rick Perry. Let's go to Governor Perry. 2012, I thought he'd be a credible candidate. He totally collapsed, was almost a buffoon, frankly, in the way he presented himself, said some very ridiculous things and was embarrassing to himself, but he's been stronger this time. He's almost like a kind of a wonk, in terms of policy issues. How about Rick Perry?
Right. The oops line and the listing of the different departments he would eliminate from 2012, that really did come to haunt him in going into this debate. So I was really watching. I was watching him with an eagle's eye, and he was so on point. Everything that came out of his mouth was very strong. His vocal behavior was strong. His image was strong. He's one of the few people, I think he put on those glasses to actually look smarter. He's one of the few people I'd say those glasses work for him. It's a good look. He's a good-looking guy. He really kept on hitting home his record in Texas. And he was a winnable Texan governor, right? He won quite a lot in Texas. So that's smart to review that record with us. And when he talked about immigration, he was talking about dealing with it for more than 14 years. I wrote down 1,933 miles he's got to worry about. Those were some really powerful numbers that he brought in there. So when you're in that non-primetime debate and you're trying to move up in the rankings, really telling us who you are, reminding us of your record, and he did get past the oops from a few years ago.
The other thing, when he said he looked in the president's eye when the president visited, and he said, Mr. President, the federal government's not going to protect the border from illegal immigration, then the state of Texas will. And he said, and we went on to do it, and he talked about the Texas Rangers and the National Guard and others that did that. I thought that was a pretty powerful point that he made.
It was very powerful. It was very presidential. All of us, at the end of the day, we're all Americans. We want to be able to look at these people and ask ourselves, do we think this person can be our president, our commander-in-chief? Can this person represent all 330 million of us with some credibility? And last night, Rick Perry did a really good job of looking presidential.
Let's turn to, and this is going to be a very different evaluation, I think. It's my guess. Senator Lindsey Graham. Talk about him.
Yeah, I kind of felt sorry for Senator Graham last night. When we're looking at, he's got a name that's been involved in politics for a long time. And when we look at image, it's not like he rocks the image piece, but his vocal behavior is what I had a real problem with last night. He sometimes ended up sounding preachy. He sometimes sounded whiny versus assertive. Assertive is what we want. And that is in contrast to Governor Perry. He never sounded bombastic to me because Governor Perry sounded assertive and really felt strongly about what he was talking about. But when Senator Graham starts to get a little whiny, then it's really hard to believe what he's saying. There's a subtextual message, Mike. I mean, you know this, to everything we do, say, our look, our wardrobe. There's a subtextual message. We always want our overt messages to match the subtextual message. But when you start getting whiny, when you start losing it on vocal behavior, then all of a sudden the words coming out of your mouth we're not even listening to because we are so distracted by this subtextual message, and it is absolutely not letting you hit your point.
I had the feeling, it's just my own feeling, that he sort of resented the fact that he was not in the prime debate because he's a senator. He has a very high view of himself as a national leader, and that he didn't feel comfortable being in the secondary debate. I just got that sense from him.
I think you're right. And again, that's that kind of whiny, defensive, I shouldn't be here, I should be somewhere else kind of attitude. Those are all subtextual messages that he was sending to you, he was sending to me, he was sending to people who he needs to vote for him. And they're probably not going to because they were so distracted that he wasn't just really on point and showcasing himself as a presidential contender. So that was his big problem last night. I would not be surprised if he gets out even before we go into the caucuses, the Iowa caucuses, the New Hampshire primary. Would not be surprised. I mean, that will be kind of the next question. Who might just decide it's just not worth it? There are 17 candidates. I really don't have a chance. I mean, I'm hoping a few of them kind of save the time and the money and the fatigue of the voters and opt themselves out on their own. And Lindsey Graham would be one of those people for me.
All right, we have 30 seconds. So Pataki and Gilmore, both former governors. I respect their being public officials, but I'm not sure why they were even there. What's your thought?
Yeah, Pataki made a good reminder to us that he was governor of New York during 9/11, so those were some good things to contrast, and Gilmore said the same thing about his governorship. But I wanted them to move us forward. I wanted to hear a little more about what are they going to do now? What are they going to do as we look into the future? So you've got to be careful when you pull on the past and some of those big highlights, because it makes us sometimes think you're living in the glory days.
And it's more about your resume rather than about where you're taking the country, because people care about now. You're so right. We'll come right back with our guest, Roshini Rajkumar, and we'll continue this conversation. We'll turn to the main debate right after this. Don't go away.
Great minds think alike. The network for the independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
Are you resigned to tolerating back pain or joint discomfort? Now, Teeter Hang-Ups will help you as it has helped millions like you find natural relief in your home in a few minutes a day. Successfully target your lower back pain with Teeter Hang-Ups Inversion. In addition to helping relieve back pain, improve joint health, build and tone muscle, and increase flexibility, Teeter Hang-Ups is rated number 1. It is UL listed, assuring safety and quality. An engineering group did a test of competing inversion tables and found Teeter Hang-Ups outperformed all the others in every category. Teeter Hang-Ups uses heat-treated steel and auto-locking hinges, assuring durability and strength. A relaxing way to achieve a stretch, decompressing and rehydrating your back and joints in just minutes a day. Try Teeter Hang-Ups in your home on a trial basis. Visit TeeterRadio.com. That's TEETER radio.com. TeeterRadio.com. You'll be glad you did.
Gold isn't for you? Ted Anderson, president of Midas Resources, one of the world's premier gold and precious metal investing firms. I get it. You wouldn't buy gold if you believed that the government is doing a great job, that the Fed will stop handing out trillions of dollars like bailout candy, that Social Security would be there for you. That's not what's happening. You might even pass on gold if the stimulus package wouldn't fuel inflation, or that the dollar wouldn't lose value, or that your retirement would be secure. If all looks rosy to you, then now is not the time to buy gold. For the realists, there have never been more sobering reasons to diversify with gold. Since 2001, the U.S. dollar index has tanked 30%, while gold has risen 300%. Right now, savvy investors are adding gold to their portfolios. You should too. Find out what they know. Call us and I'll send you 10 reasons why gold will do very well. Free. 800-686-2237. 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Spend your life with
Why do over 50% of North Americans suffer from some form of chronic ailment? Could it be due to a toxic overload? It's time to take back your life. Get the lead out as well as the cadmium, mercury, and calcium. Extendivite is a garlic cayenne supplement with 5 other herbs that acts like a natural Drano, cleaning out the stored toxins, restoring your energy and youthfulness that we've lost. If you would like to live your life free of sickness, pain, or fear, then Extendivite is for you. Available in either capsules or liquid, you too can see why Extendivite is the #1 heart drop available. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit our website at heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Now, a twice as nice Twin Kit special offer from Complete H2O Minerals for all GCN listeners. Get a Complete H2O Minerals Twin Kit with 33 different minerals, vitamins, and amino acids all in a liquid form. Enough for 2 people for 1 month. Regular price $89.95. But now Complete H2O Minerals is offering the Twin Kit for $69.95. And all GCN listeners receive a bonus 16-ounce bottle of Ionic Silver absolutely free with free shipping. A $120 total value. Hurry, limited time offer. Call 803-794-4767 or click CompleteH2OMinerals.com.
And let's get back to it, folks. Good to have you with us. Mike Siegel in as we get into the meat and potatoes of the main debate last night on Fox. And as I mentioned, we're joined by Roshini Rajkumar. She's a communication consultant, does great work in that field, giving us a great, incisive analysis of each of the candidates, and certainly in terms of their presentation, how they came across. Were they presidential? Were they believable? Did they look like they could win? How about their vocal presence as well? Let's go to the main debate, and Governor Jeb Bush will start. He was, I suppose, the Trump is the catalyst. Well, let's start with Donald Trump. I guess we have to start there. Go ahead. I won't even add to that. Just go ahead and give us any thought you have about Donald Trump.
Well, he was not in my top 3, Mike. I don't know what I was thinking would happen with Donald Trump. I was hoping that he would behave. I was really hoping, just for the sake of his status in the polls and his presence on that stage, that he would try to act presidential. But he just reinforced what I have felt about this guy for the last several months. There is no way I want him to be the president of the United States. And in fact, it might make me move to Europe if he were to be elected, because I just can't imagine this person representing us as our president.
Now, let me ask you one quick question. Let me ask you one quick question, because this is important. I'm assuming that it's not about necessarily his point of view, but about who he is and the way he presents himself personally.
Absolutely. So let's go back to my little test. Image, no. Vocal behavior, no. He's bombastic. And image is the clothing, the hair, the scowl on his face. If you look at even just when he's in ready stance, there's a scowl on his face. He doesn't even just have a straight mouth. It's a scowl. I cannot believe him. There is no believability factor for me. And where I absolutely lost it, I was waiting to hear something that might at least help me to give him some credibility. But if you recall, they were talking about the banks, and they told him, whichever moderator asked him about being bankrupt, and he said that he had never gone bankrupt, in fact, and he had taken advantage of the laws of this country. And he went on and on about that. And I thought, wow, is he telling us that he has manipulated banking laws and to try to get rich? And he said something like, every person on the front page of a business magazine has done the same. And I'm thinking, wow, should you be proud of that if that's indeed what you've done? And I wrote in my notes, completely lost me here. Trump has gone over the edge. So I don't know what you thought about that part of the debate, Mike, but there's no turning back for me with this guy. I do not think he's winnable, that he can win this thing. I would be stunned if Americans if Republicans make him their nominee.
I think that's probably true, but let me make a couple points. One is what he was saying in that, and what you were describing, is that he had corporations that use Chapter 11, but that's done all the time in order to avoid any personal liability. And, the banks had to absorb the costs. Now, you can take that for what it's worth, Because in the end, you know what the banks do when they lose money on a deal from Donald Trump or any other wealthy company or individual is that they'll pass it along to us by charging higher individual checking account fees. They'll raise your checking account fee $1 a month. They'll raise the stop payment charge from $25 to $30. They'll raise insufficient funds checks cost from $35 to $40. That's what they'll do, is they'll hammer us. They didn't have time to do this, which is part of the problem with these debates. But his doing that, if you say, well, I'm just doing it to the rich bankers who are very shrewd, but they're going to turn around and hit us with the costs.
Well, Mike, how you just described it actually makes sense. You just educated us about something. What he kept saying is, I've never filed for bankruptcy. I've never filed for bankruptcy. I'm worth $10 billion. It's just like, it's laughable because you're just glossing over so many things. And when he talks about donating and being philanthropic, as far as the reports I've seen, it's his foundations and money that has come into his foundations is what he's turning around and giving. It's not necessarily his own money that he's donating. So the believability factor for me is absolutely zero, if not negative numbers, with Donald Trump.
But the other thing, too, is he frankly admitted what's the cancer of our system. He basically said he bought and paid for candidates, or I should say politicians. He said he paid for Hillary legally. He gave her campaign contributions.
Yeah, what's up with that? She had to come to my wedding because I made her donate. I mean, that just sounds kind of pathetic.
Well, that's the way. But see, that's the way politicians operate in this country, as you well know.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem. In fact, he had paid off Rand Paul, who was attacking him. So
yeah, I mean, that was actually kind of fun for me to watch. He and Rand Paul. I mean, I think Rand Paul has a great head of hair, but it was a little long and a little too curly. And then you had Trump's. So as far as image goes, the hair on the stage last night among many of those 10 men was giving a big thumbs down for me. So many of them need a new hairstylist at the very least before the next debate.
No question. But the whole the other thing that came up, and I want to get your take on this, which I thought was really interesting, is his exchange with Megyn Kelly when she raised the question about what he called women, and he tried to say it was only Rosie O'Donnell, and he turned it back on Megyn Kelly basically, and people went along with that. What's your sense of that? Did it have any afterflow or flow after the event that had any impact in terms of her raising the question about his description of women?
Yeah, I will agree that many of us, this country has gotten very overly concerned with being politically correct, but I'd like to think we still have manners. And he came across as very boorish. He did not have to attack Rosie O'Donnell. In fact, that really takes a lot away from Trump. I mean, apparently you have not put that feud behind you. And I was really kind of appalled that the audience laughed at that, He has made negative comments about women. It is not a good thing. I do not think there are a lot of women out there who are going to add to his numbers when he continues to go on like this. But then the other piece that really lost it for me in that exchange was when he was directly attacking Megyn Kelly. Now, I'm an ex-TV reporter. I used to be a reporter. When you're truly in a reporter mode, and I know Megyn Kelly is kind of a blend of journalist and talk show host, you are not supposed to be necessarily nice, okay? You're supposed to try to elicit truth and facts from the people you're covering. So for him to then say, well, Megyn, you haven't been very nice to me, and so I don't think that's nice, so I'm not going to be nice to you. I just was like, where are we? At recess? That was kind of what I was getting from that exchange. It's not her job to pander to you, Donald Trump, or really to be nice to any of the candidates. I mean, she should be professional, she should be polished, and she should be polite. But it is really not their job as moderators to give you a pass or be nice, because they're supposed to be asking the tough questions. So right there, he showed that he doesn't really get this system and that celebrity piece that he is, and wanting to always get, that media-centric kind of thing for him, which is what he's gotten used to with his shows and pageants and all of that. It's a very different world when you're talking about journalism and political coverage. So he really showed his naivete in that exchange, as far as I was concerned, as well as just being very boorish and rude.
All right, we have about 45 seconds. Jeb Bush, can you give us a quick summation?
You know, it was just kind of like no air. You know, I was expecting that we'd see something. I mean, he comes from a presidential family, and he was so lackluster. I'm wondering if a lot of those donors are wondering why they wrote the checks to Jeb's campaign.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, that he had the ability in that debate to be presidential, following in his brothers and father's footsteps in terms of style and presentation. Then he seemed to fall short, and he was a governor, which is the head of a state, so you would think he had the experience. But
it's almost like he didn't have enough sleep. I mean, there's just something missing.
There was something missing. We'll come right back on that point. Stay with us.
Not just an alternative to the mainstream media. We're the premier independent talk radio network. We are GCN.
You dread going to the airport, getting there too early or too late? Let us get you there at just the right time and take away your worries. Stay overnight in one of our comfortable rooms. Park in our secure parking lot. Take our shuttle to the airport, all for close to the price of what you would pay just for parking. Visit www.seattleairport.doubletree.com to book your Park and Fly package at the Doubletree by Hilton Seattle Airport, or call 800-222-8733.
Our grandparents grew up in an era where quality service trumped all, where employees smiled and greeted with their first name. Well, the kind folks at Silver Reef Hotel Casino Spa haven't forgotten. They go for great. Every guest, every time. They invite you to experience the Silver Reef difference. Experience everything at Silver Reef Hotel Casino Spa. I-5 exit 260, 4 minutes west, or at silverreefcasino.com.
Affordable health insurance was the promise of Obamacare, but for many, the government mandate caused more problems than it solved. And I want to tell you about a truly affordable alternative, Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare bypasses doctor and hospital panels, giving you the freedom to choose 100% coverage up to $1 million per year per occurrence, who includes dental, vision, pharmacy, and holistic care. Call 1-800-714-6993, 1-800-714-6993, 1-800-714-6993 today.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Ted Anderson, I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows. Pause and rewind live TV. Even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
As if chlorine in our water weren't bad enough, now they're adding ammonia?
It's true. Some municipalities are now adding ammonia plus chlorine to your water supply. It's a disinfectant called chloramine. But with a trusted Big Berkey water filter, you can keep chloramine out of your water. New NSF EPA certified lab tests show EPA Berkey water filters remove chloramines, pharmaceuticals, BPA, pesticides, bacteria and viruses, all forms of fluoride, and much more. Big Berkey water filters are the original and most trusted on the market. The gold standard in water purification. And our filters last for years at less than 2 cents per gallon. Big Berkey, the one that mix powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get your Big Berkey today. Call 1-877-99-BERKEY or click BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. That's 1-877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
And back we are, folks. Good to be here. Mike Siegel in as we move right along with a wonderful guest who's here to talk about the debate. And that is the primetime debate, of course. Roshini Rajkumar, and she's a communication consultant and doing a great job talking about the candidates. All right, we covered Jeb Bush, disappointing. Donald Trump, controversial as usual. We'll get to a couple of the guys who are supposed to be really leaders. Governor Scott Walker. I was somewhat disappointed. Tell us about him.
Yeah, he tends to be, third in the polls lately. He kind of was sort of milquetoast. I mean, he didn't do anything too drastically wrong, but he didn't do anything to stand out or make a mark. He looked okay. He didn't look great. His vocal behavior was fine. Believability has always been an issue for me with Scott Walker. Now, I know there are some Republicans out there who just love him, but he is just always a little bit kind of on the edge for me when it comes to what's the truth and what's not. And that's where I get a little questionable with his winnability factor. So last night, he didn't hurt himself too badly, but he didn't really break out and do anything that great. And some of these contenders, you probably noticed, Mike, really, really put themselves on the far right when it comes to pro-choice, abortion rights, and reproductive rights. And that is going to hurt some of them as we move forward here when it comes to maybe not as much in the primary, but with the general electorate.
The thing about Scott Walker was a part of it. You talk about vocal quality. I think the depth of at least a man's voice is a very important element of this, and he has kind of a high-pitched voice, actually, as Senator Ted Cruz does.
Oh, yeah.
And
exactly.
That pitch, I think, it's unfair in a way, but it's a reality that it detracts from their presentation. The authority is harmed by that.
Right. We're always going for a deep, rich, resonant voice. Whether you're a man or a woman, that's what you want. You don't want nasal. You don't want high pitch. You don't want too much of a change, and that's why when you listen to singing contests, they say pitchy. Well, the spoken voice also has pitchiness and nasality, which really hurts. So the subtextual message to those kinds of elements is always negative. It doesn't really get you anywhere. Now, on the primetime debate, I ranked the top three as Rubio, Christie, and Kasich. And this was, again, going back to presidential presence. Did they actually look like they could be a leader, like they could be our president? And did they really sound like they believed what they were saying, not just towing some kind of party line or some sort of propaganda, but really saying what they believed? And Rubio, Christie, and Kasich, if you dig deep, and you don't even have to dig that deep, most of their responses were nice little stories packaged up in a very good visual. They used great words. They were strong in their beliefs, and they sounded like they really could be leaders in those responses. And so that's why I ranked it as Rubio, Christie, Kasich. And I know not everyone's agreeing with me on the Christie factor, but actually he won some points with me when he argued with Rand Paul about our documents and our privacy and surveillance and all of that. It really did. He really shined because he could really say, I did this. I had to deal with this kind of security issue. So I found that very credible. I'm not sure what you thought about that exchange.
Well, we'll politely disagree, but let me explain why. The Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So you need a warrant, and I'll say
well,
this
and
personally.
I agree with that. I mean, I don't think
But Chris,
violating
let me just finish. Let me just finish the point. Chris Christie thinks it's okay for the National Security Agency to take 300 million phone records from every American and then match them against phone calls of terrorists. You can't do that under that constitutional mandate. It's unconstitutional. Now, the Foreign Surveillance Intelligence Court gave the NSA the authority. They violated the Constitution in that decision because it's very clear. When they say papers and effects, obviously 200 years ago, that would now include telephone records that are digital. You have to get a warrant. That's all. In fact, James Sensenbrenner, the congressman from your state of Minnesota, said when he wrote the Patriot Act, he didn't intend for every American to have their phone records taken. You had to get a search warrant or a warrant for the person themselves in order to get those records.
Look, I am never going to want to violate the Constitution. My point in this, at least in last night's debate, because I know some of the context that you're bringing up here, I don't know if it came out as clearly in the debate by these candidates. You know, this is context and content that you know and was maybe reported in other places. But if you just look at the fight last night during that debate between these two guys, both of them held their own. So that was one of the strongest moments for Rand Paul, and it was one of the strongest moments for Chris Christie. But to me, as far as just seeming presidential and how they delivered throughout the night, I gave it to Chris Christie definitely over Rand Paul from the whole performance. And that's
I agree with that. I don't see Rand Paul as being presidential at all, but that's just a personal feeling about his views and my predisposition to knowing a good deal about him. And all of the candidates, because as you know, you do this kind of work. It's your job to know. All right, so now why Rubio? Okay, you mentioned Christie, but now you have Rubio. Why?
Rubio on top. I mean, he just, whether you agreed with some of the things he was saying or not, because he really did come out quite conservative when it came to reproductive rights, he was able to package in strong words, looked us in the eye. He was calmer. I mean, a little different style from Carly Fiorina, but that same authority to what he was saying, and he sounded believable. You know, he looked good. He sounded good. He was believable in what he was saying last night, and it was the first time I kind of thought, wow, I don't know that he could be president, but he was a contender. He showed to be a contender last night.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is that it's not as clear about reproductive rights. I don't think that there's a market for the so-called liberal side of that in owning that issue. I think there are a lot of states in this country that passed laws limiting abortion. States that went as far as they could in doing that, and those states have electoral votes. So I think it's not as clear to me.
What they had to do, though, in the Republican primaries or these debates, we know what Republicans feel about what their stance is on this issue, right? But there's even some give in that continuum, and so if a candidate chooses to use these debates as an opportunity to really, really hit hard that they are so anti-reproductive rights or, exceptions for rape and that kind of thing, they are going to lose a segment of the female vote.
I agree with you about that. I think rape and incest, no matter what your position is, rape and incest have to be exceptions.
And a couple of them were pretty much hinting at that it wouldn't be an exception for them. Whether they might have said it or hinted at it.
Yeah, I think that's going too far.
Yeah, and that's going to hurt them when it comes to, even in the primary, with some of the Republican voters, too, especially the women.
Yeah, probably so. Senator Cruz, Ted Cruz, and Ben Carson we'll get to, those, and Huckabee. Why don't you take all three of those? We have 2 minutes.
All right. So Ted Cruz, there's just something about his look that's a little unsettling for me. So that's been tough. He seems to be very popular with segments of the party. He has some issues, and you pointed this out too on the vocal behavior. So all of a sudden now, when I'm distracted by image, I'm distracted by vocal behavior, it's very hard for me to believe him. So then we can't even get to the winnability question with him. Ben Carson, very smart, Dr. Carson. He had a couple good one-liners in there last night. He had the best of the closing statements when he talked about the surgeries and all these things he's done that no one else has. And he made some wonderful comments about equality and race, and it shouldn't be about the color of your skin. It's what's in your brain. Well, it's too bad that we don't have more of his ethic and his integrity among the whole field, but we know that he's not going to win. So the winnability piece, even though image, vocal behavior, and believability may be there for him, the winnability is unfortunately not happening for him.
We got 30 seconds. Mike Huckabee.
Yeah, he's another one. He's been here, he's been at this dance, and he just didn't hit it over the edge. I know he tried to sort of say some controversial lines, but his ship has sailed. I would be really surprised if he gets any more traction. And if he's already having trouble raising money, I don't think last night helped him in any way.
Yeah, I think so. And then the comment about Israel being at the door of the oven wasn't a great idea.
Not helpful.
No, I agree with you. Listen, I hope we can do this again because there'll be a lot coming up. We'll keep in touch and have your PR firm keep in touch with me for future appearances, and love to talk to you again.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Thank you, Roshini. Good to talk to you. Have a great weekend.